We've all had that one friend whose life is just so put together, achieving all her goals, energized, in control, thriving, and seemingly succeeding at every part of life. That lifestyle can seem completely unattainable, but what if I told you that with the right systems and evidence-based habits, you also have the potential to create the life that you want? And no, you don't have to wake up at 5 AM drinking pureed kale on the way to Pilates to achieve it. The truth is, the most successful women I know operate from a completely different playbook when it comes to how they invest their time, energy, and attention. And today I'm sharing 8 transformative, proven habits that will make all the difference. Going from doctor to content creator to tech founder and spending time with high-achieving women crushing it in all of these fields made me realize how I'd been approaching success all wrong. I'd analyze what really worked, writing down their habits and learning about the psychology behind why they work. And honestly, implementing these habits has literally changed my life, and I hope it's about to change yours too. These aren't your typical productivity tips. Some of these habits will challenge everything that you think you know about success. Habit number 6 particularly changed the game for me. If you're new here, my name's Izzy, I'm a doctor and tech founder, and on this channel we explore the strategies and mindsets to help you fulfill your potential in life. As a companion to this video, I've also created a completely free guided journaling pack for making this shift from your current life to creating your dream reality. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out down below completely for free. And without further ado, let's dive in. The first habit is designing systems wherever possible, not just goals. So while goals are really good for setting a direction, and I think they're really important for that, systems are actually what you need to make progress towards that. One key realization for me was that people who are succeeding versus not succeeding in life often have the very same goals. And when I reflected on my own life through this lens, I realized that the areas of my life where I was succeeding versus the areas of life where I was not succeeding, I had goals for both of them. The main difference between whether I succeeded or not was whether I had built a strong system to get towards that goal. One of the goals I've had for a long time is to generally live a healthy life, which includes both nutrition, exercise, sleep, etc. For the longest time, I felt like I was always falling short on the nutrition goal. I would often open up the fridge and realize, oh, there's nothing really to eat, so I guess maybe we just go out to eat, or like we get takeaway, or I just eat cereal. And so even though I had this goal of eating healthily, having like high protein, like more vegetables, whole minimally processed foods, low sugar, I wasn't actually able to do that because I hadn't built a system in place. It was only until I'd actually built in a system for, okay, when I order groceries, how I do meal planning, and what kinds of meals we are eating each day, that then actually I really unlocked the whole nutrition piece at home. A classic quote from James Clear that really resonates in this area is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Another way of viewing this whole systems versus goals thing is viewing them as 2 separate types of goals. There are outcome goals and there are process goals. Outcome goals are essentially the big huzzah at the end of achieving a goal. A process goal can almost be viewed as the system that's helping to get you towards your outcome goal. So in this example with the meal planning, the process goal is every week I have planned what meals that we want, I've ordered the necessary groceries online and saved any to a list which I can really quickly reorder from it as needed, and then we actually execute on those meals and eat healthily. Whereas the outcome goal is a longer term thing of, oh, we want to eat well so that we're healthy and we work towards longevity and fueling our energy and productivity for the day and feeling good. And research has shown that these process-focused goals with smaller, more regularly occurring and controllable goals or systems provide a regular, recognizable feedback loop, which helps to drive motivation and also actually make stuff happen. And speaking of building systems that actually work, this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately as I've been scaling my content and also my business. I've been using Notion for literally years now, I think around like 5 or 6 years, and I have my entire content ecosystem living in Notion. But what used to take me literally hours and hours of manual work creating databases that auto-link in to organize all of this information has completely changed since I started using Notion's new AI agent. So I'm very excited to share that today's video is sponsored by Notion, and honestly this feels like the perfect video to talk about it. Here's what's interesting about Notion's AI agent. It doesn't just chat or give suggestions like other AI tools or LLMs, it actually completes entire workflows for you and builds things for you in Notion. So for example, instead of me spending hours manually creating a meal planning system database and updating it, my agent can do that all end to end. All I have to do is ask it to create a meal planning database for my healthy meals and include a couple of the key parameters that I want to track. And the cool thing here is that because it has access to all of my Notion and everything about my business and life is in Notion, my agent knows exactly how I like to work. And I've set up a profile page that tells my agent exactly how I like to organize my content, my workflow, and any SOPs for anything across the business and my life. So if you're like me and are serious about building systems that can help to get us to our goals, which, let's be honest, is really essential for any ambitious woman trying to level up, Notion's AI agent could be a complete game-changing tool for how you manage your work and plan out your life. You can check it out through the link in my description and see if it can help you build those systems we just talked about. Now let's talk about habit number 2. The second habit is decide once and then scale from there. Did you know that there is a neurological cost to making a decision? This is a psychological principle known as decision fatigue. And you might have experienced this yourself if, let's say, at the end of a busy day, you open your fridge, you look at all the food in your fridge, and you just can't decide what to eat. Or maybe you've looked in your wardrobe and it's overflowing with clothes, and yet you think you have nothing to wear. In each of these examples, you are quite possibly experiencing decision fatigue, which is a mental exhaustion that we get after making decisions again and again and again. This leads us to favor immediate gratification, oversimplifying decisions, or defaulting to familiar, even though they're less optimal options. One example of this is at the end of a busy day, you could choose to either go for a walk, go to the gym, learn some Chinese, or scroll on your phone. And the one of these options, which gives you immediate gratification and is a default familiar option, even though it's less optimal, is often doom scrolling on your phone, which is especially interesting because by choosing to scroll on your phone rather than take any of these other actions, even though it takes less mental energy to make that choice, ultimately it doesn't serve us. An example of this is they did a study on judges where they looked at their decision quality of their judgments throughout the day, and they found that consistently decision quality actually deteriorates. One example for me is the decision of what to wear in the morning. This dress right here, I have about 3 or 4 copies of almost exactly the same dress, and in the morning I often just default to wearing this same dress over and over again because I like the way it looks, it's comfortable, and that means that I can eliminate one extra decision from my morning. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Barack Obama, and so many other examples famously restrict their selection of outfits and clothes that they wear because this is a daily decision that we really just don't need to make again and again and again. The third habit is detachment from outcomes. One consistent habit I've noticed among highly achieving women who are also happy and content and feeling in control of their lives is that they measure success by effort, alignment, and input, not by things outside their control. A good way of thinking about this is separating out goals into input goals versus output goals. One way that I've developed to think about this over time is separating goals into almost 3 stages, 3 categories. There's input goals, there's output goals, and there's outcome goals. An example with my YouTube channel is an input goal is I want to spend 15 hours on my YouTube channel every week. An output goal is I want to post 1 video per week. An outcome goal is I want to gain X number of subscribers every month. And as you can see, as we go from input to outcome, I have much more control over the input versus the outcome. It's essentially 100% within my control whether I actually spend 15 hours of work on my YouTube channel. Then for the output, there's a little bit less control there because I don't necessarily know how much research a video will need until I really start. I'm not sure how long the editing process is going to take. So the output is slightly less predictable than the input, but it's still broadly under my control. And finally, the outcome goals, such as I want to hit 1 million subscribers in X amount of time, that is the least in my control because there's so much beyond my control that I cannot account for. And so whether or not I actually get there is partly to do with my inputs and the output, but then it's also partly due to external conditions. So for me, while for my YouTube channel, I do have an outcome goal for where I want to go with the channel, and I think that's very helpful for setting a North Star. On the day-to-day, I actually focus more on my input and output. Once I've set the outcome goal and I've used it to generate a North Star and a strategy, I then let go of it, I detach from it, I take a step back. And actually that level of detachment allows me to work from a place of joy and progress rather than a place of stress and pressure. This habit actually draws directly from principles of non-attachment and equanimity, which are core concepts in Eastern philosophy. Psychological suffering arises when we cling to specific outcomes and identify our success or worth with these external results. The top 1% understand that attaching your happiness to these outcomes that you cannot fully control creates this opportunity for unnecessary suffering. And so instead, by focusing on what we can control, our effort, our intention, our process, rather than external validation or specific results, you cultivate what Eastern philosophers call wise effort. And this mindset shift, while it sounds like taking a step back from making goals, actually paradoxically improves performance by reducing the anxiety and pressure that often sabotage success. The practice involves training yourself to find satisfaction in the quality of your actions and inputs rather than the results or outcomes that they produce. So for example, instead of defining success as getting 100,000 views on a YouTube video, maybe I could reframe it as creating content that genuinely serves my audience and that I'm proud of. This detachment doesn't mean that I care any less, it actually just means that I'm directing my energy more effectively. And research in sports psychology actually confirms this approach. Athletes who focus on process over outcomes consistently outperform those who are fixated on winning. Because because counterintuitively, the mental freedom created by letting go of outcome attachment allows for more presence, creativity, and flow, which are all qualities that ultimately improve performance and are so important for leaders to embody. The fourth habit is practicing implementation intentions. Implementation intentions are proven by studies to actually increase the likelihood that your goal will actually turn into action. Simply by making an implementation intention, you increase your chance of actually succeeding at a goal that you've made by about 74%. An example of this is for my red LED face mask. I am super into my skincare, and one of the things that's part of my skincare essentials is using this red LED face mask. I use it for about 10 minutes every day, and the way that I make sure that I don't forget to do it is that I habit stack it and create an implementation intention that when I do my morning meditation, I also put on my face mask. And this means that as soon as I get out my meditation cushion and I start meditating, I know that if I meditate, then I put on my face mask and turn on the red LED mask. And so Ali, my husband, often walks into our room in the morning with me on my little meditation cushion, meditating away with my legs crossed and wearing this spooky red glowing mask. This simple shift of setting the intention that when I meditate, I use my red LED mask has meant that I almost never miss this new habit. When I first tried to build in the habit of using this red LED mask every day, I actually really struggled because I was like, when do I do this thing? I kind of need to it's hard to see while using the mask because there's red lights glowing in your eyes. And so when do I actually do this? I need 10 minutes every day to do this. And it was only when I actually decided, I set the intention to implement this while I was meditating, that actually I became really consistent with use of my red LED mask. The way that you can bring this into your own life is think of if-then plans, which link situational cues or existing habits and stack those with a new habit that you want to build in. A few examples of these could be if, let's say, you want to build in a morning walk into your routine. You think, okay, after I brush my teeth and put on my sunscreen, then I'm going for a morning walk. So try to think of your own routine and habits that you might be struggling to build in, and think of ways that you can actually set an intention for how you're going to actually make this happen. The fifth habit is strategic underscheduling. Published research shows that after 8 to 9 hours of consecutive work, cognitive performance begins to significantly decline, and shifts that are more than 12 hours long are associated with 2 to 3 times more errors. Another study at Stanford University found that productivity per hour declines sharply when a work week exceeds 50 hours, and total output actually decreases beyond 55 hours despite more time worked. So that means that if you're working for more than 55 hours, there's a reasonable chance that actually that is shooting yourself in the foot, where you working so long is actually decreasing your total output because you're becoming less efficient and you're probably enjoying your work less. Obviously, this is not going to be true for every single individual person because these are studies which look at averages. All of this is to say that working for too long each week and pushing yourself and scheduling in work basically all waking hours of the week is probably actually counterproductive for producing the results that you want. A huge amount of high achievers' success is based on their ability to show up as their best self with the most creative, inspired, and productive selves that they can be. And so part of this is actually blocking off time to really have downtime. Work hard and also rest hard. And this energy management is actually an art because it's actually an active part of being a high achiever is protecting your capacity to execute consistently. I really like to think of this concept of refilling the well because initially I was much more in the camp of oh, well, let's go, let's just keep working, keep pushing, work late, wake up early and keep working. But at some point actually I realized, especially for creative work which requires you to think in new ways and feel inspired, that way of working is really not effective. And I realized at some point that actually my well had become empty because I hadn't given myself any time to rest, to learn new things, to focus on my physical health. And so what I did instead was, instead of scheduling work for the whole day and forgetting to schedule in the other things, is I actually block out time every single evening just for me. And an example of this in action is almost every single evening I schedule in a yoga class which is in person in the studio to create that space for rest and recovery. And this functions as a really good hard stop on my day where it's okay, as soon as it gets to that time of my yoga class, I gotta go. And then after that, I have set the intention for myself that I don't actually get back into work after that. That is my unwinding time. Resisting this urge to fill every available time slot with meetings actually gives you more opportunities to explore new ideas, which especially for high achievers or leaders in a business, it's actually critical to your role and to your development and to how effective you are as a team for you to be able to think high level and have that space to breathe and do that. This links on really nicely to the 6th habit, which is keeping a not to-do list. Top 1% women know that their time, attention, and energy is the most precious finite resource that they have. And this is the one habit that really changed things the most for me. For years, I was used to leaving my time and energy open to anybody who wanted to access it. Any tasks or to-dos or hangouts with people, I would automatically default to saying yes to. But at some point you realize that your life is almost overflowing with things to do. And it's only by saying no to some things that we can make the space for truly needle-moving activities that help to unblock a bottleneck. This can range all the way from small things, such as in the morning on my not to-do list is not to pick up the phone first thing in the morning. This is one that I sometimes struggle with because it's so easy to immediately, as soon as you wake up, have your brain chatter start and you're like, oh, I wonder what's happening in all the various different fronts of the business, in the email inbox, in the messages. It's so easy to think that. And so one of my implementation intentions is actually not to pick up my phone first thing after I wake up. This can also range to the big things, such as saying no to a trip or a holiday, which you know won't actually take you towards your goals and you don't really want to go on. Another example of this is when, let's say, meetings overrun regularly and actually stopping allowing this to continually happen and instead being like, okay, actually, like, we want to stop having meetings overrun. How can we do this? We can set a clear agenda, we can time manage better throughout the meeting, and then we can actually say, you know what, at the end of the meeting, that's it. Like, that's the hard stop. If we don't manage to talk about everything, then we'd have to just talk about it next time. And this practice actually trains us to work better with the time that we have. And this point on the not to-do list, not overrunning meetings all the time, is actually so crucial because then it allows you to trust yourself more, frees up your time, gives you more clarity on when your meetings are starting and ending, makes you more efficient in the meetings itself, and also helps you and your team with time management. And one thing to mention here is that if you stop doing things or decide things on your not to-do list, it's quite common to have feelings of guilt or wondering like, oh, maybe like I shouldn't actually say no to this. But it's an important question to ask yourself whether the current thing that you're doing and accepting in your life is going to take you towards living your dream life. And if you ask that question about each moment in your day, what answers come up for you? Habit number 7 is outsource before you're overwhelmed. Top 1% women treat their attention and energy as their most valuable resource. Buying back their time then becomes their highest ROI investment. What this often demands of us is delegating earlier than feels comfortable for us. There may be things in your life which you already know how to do, you don't particularly enjoy, it doesn't have to be you, this could actually be done by somebody else, and yet you're still doing it yourself. If you're the only person working on your life or business, then you will always be limited by how many hours of time and how much energy and attention you have in a day. If you want to be able to scale beyond that, you need to learn how to delegate. Some examples of this might be hiring a virtual assistant or a video editor if you're making videos, or a generalist who can help you across lots of different parts of your business, or even hiring a nanny to help you at home and buy back some of your time there, hiring a cleaner. One way to think about this is to think of your ideal hourly rate. How much would it cost for somebody to buy an hour of your time? Let's take the example of hiring a cleaner to come in once a week or something like that to help you with the usual tasks that you would do at home. If you think about the hours that you spend cleaning your home on a weekly basis, and you also imagine the cost of hiring a cleaner to complete the same job for you, is it worth paying that amount of money to buy back those hours of your life? So let's say your usual basic clean of your house would usually take you about 3 hours per week. This is assuming you don't have kids or like high volume of mess coming through your home, assuming there's just basic stuff to clean. Maybe it would cost $50, $60, $70 to hire somebody to actually do that for you. Is your time worth that amount of money to buy back? In most cases, if you're watching this video, probably yes. One common objection to this is like, oh, but what if I'm not really making much money yet? Or like, I don't feel like I can justify it. And I had this exact same experience when I was starting out making YouTube videos. I realized that editing a YouTube video for me was taking me maybe like 12 hours to edit a video. And this would have to go across multiple days because I would get mentally fatigued after editing for a while. I also realized that because I was just learning how to video edit, my video edits were not fantastic. It was a bit basic, a bit janky, and I wasn't enjoying it either. And so I was like, okay, what would it take for me to be able to outsource this? And so then what I did is I went onto one of these freelance websites, Fiverr, Upwork, People Per Hour, and I put out job postings for a video editor. And obviously professional video editors are much faster, more efficient at video editing, and just better at it as well. And so then I made a deal with myself. I said, okay, you know what? If I'm doing this video editing for 12 hours, it's taking me 12 hours to edit a video, I can pay somebody $100 to do this video edit for me because they're faster at it, they're more efficient, they're also better at it. And then what I could do is I could offer tutoring on italki or for like science and math subjects for around like maybe 20 to 30 pounds an hour, which means that in a couple of hours of tutoring work, maybe 3 or 4 hours, I can then earn back the money that it would cost to pay somebody to edit my video. And so editing the video myself would take 12 hours. Me tutoring on these websites takes about 4 hours of my time. And so clearly then, just by doing this and setting up this system, I have bought back 8 hours of my time. That's a whole working day without actually losing any money. And so there are almost always ways to think about clever systems that you can set up to be able to buy back your time in these ways. And the key here is to think about outsourcing before you feel ready, before you're already overwhelmed. Because once you're overwhelmed, actually hiring somebody takes effort. It takes an investment of time, of mental energy, attention to do it well. And so if you're already overwhelmed and flooded with stuff, it's even more difficult to find the space to actually do that. And so then you're almost in this kind of catch-22 position where you're like too busy to actually do the hiring, but you need to hire in order to become less busy. And this is a really difficult place to be in. So by running a prediction model of like, okay, where could I actually delegate or outsource? This helps you to see these opportunities ahead of time and actually be prepared. The 8th and final habit is training non-attachment to identity. For me, on my journey, I initially started as a medical student, I was a doctor, content creator, and now a tech founder. And through each of these stages of my life, I've had to almost be very fluid with my identity and be able to release old versions of myself in order to create the space to grow. This isn't just in identity in terms of what work I'm doing, but also identity in terms of how I show up in the world, how I communicate, whether I meditate or not, what kind of activities I do. It's very natural for us to feel a sense of attachment to our identities. For example, for a long time, I purely viewed myself as a doctor who sometimes makes YouTube videos and sometimes does the kind of business stuff. But I realized this was actually holding me back from owning that new identity. And me clinging to this previous identity of like, oh, I'm just a doctor, was actually limiting me, because the limitation of our achievement in life is actually often the limits of our psychology. And so if we can unlock our psychology, how we view ourselves, and open it up to being able to take on new identities and shift towards who we want to become, this allows us to break through these limiting beliefs about who we are and what we're capable of. An example here is when I was actually shifting into content creation and entrepreneurship, I refused to view myself as a YouTuber or an entrepreneur for the longest time. And looking back, I see how that delayed me by potentially months to years on my progression. Stepping into a new version of yourself can feel scary and painful because you're actively choosing to leave behind the familiar and the comfortable in exchange for this new potential reality. And this is fundamentally the work of creating your dream life. Nothing worth having comes easy, and this includes creating the life that you want. It's going to take getting out of your comfort zone. It's going to take changing your identity and how you show up and how you view yourself, how you introduce yourself. And at the end of the day, it's up to us ourselves to decide if that's a worthy trade for us or not. But what I would love for you watching this video is for you to be able to make that choice with eyes fully wide open and to decide what kind of life that you want to create and then step into it. So those are all the 8 habits. One thing I would ask is if you can come up with 2 action points from today's video that you're actually going to implement in your own life, and either send me an email with them or write a comment down below, or just note it down somewhere in your notebook so you're not going to forget, and actually make it happen. The most important thing when watching YouTube videos about personal development, about how to change your life, is actually doing the work of changing your life. And so I hope this video has been helpful or interesting or useful in some kind of way. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you might like this video over here where I dive deep into how exactly to create a vision board to actually change your life, drawing on neuroscience-backed tips and evidence. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and remember that the journey is the destination. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!